Hey, good evening and welcome to Fired Up. I'm your host of the show, Bob Irwin, coming to you from the gun store here in Las Vegas. We are broadcast simultaneously on KSHP 1400 AM radio and on YouTube at Fired Up with Bob Irwin. We're here every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. You know that if you're listening to us on the radio. We are in drive time, so you can listen to our brilliant explanations of what's going on in the world of guns while you're driving home. My guests tonight are defense attorney Clark Patrick, who's with us frequently. He's a murder defense specialist. And one of our firearms instructors, new to the show, Art Javier. And first, I'd like, Clark, if you just give your background real quick again for our listeners, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, Bob. Thanks for having me back. As most listeners know, grew up in Montana, been around firearms and hunting my whole life. I did a few years with the Army as a tank commander.
Cool.
And, and for the last 10 plus years, I've been in Las Vegas practicing solely murder defense.
And Art, first appearance on the show.
Hi, everyone. My name is Art Javier. I spent 8 years in the Army myself, first enlisted and then as an officer. Been through pretty much every shooting school that the Army has. Also a graduate of Army SRT school, which is SWAT team school. Been all over the world, have trained local, state, police, and military units domestically, as well as internationally. Some of the more exotic units I've trained over the years have been the Philippine National Police, the Royal Cambodian Special Forces, Czech Special Forces, the Brazilian State Police, and the Marine Security Detachment for Marine One Presidential Helicopter.
It's only an hour show.
I have a few more things I can throw in there.
Art has a tremendous background in this area and holds virtually every NRA instructor certificate you can have. So he's been working for us as an instructor for our concealed weapon classes and some of the classes, and we're going to add some classes because he's capable of teaching them. We'll get into that a little bit later. If you have a question or comment about anything you hear on the show, we don't take calls anymore because of the drive time thing with the radio station. That would be bad. So if you have a question or comment, you can send a text or an email to bob@firedupmail.com, and we will get that and answer all your texts. If you send in a question, we will answer it. We answer the common ones on the air, but individual, we do respond to everybody. If you have a question for the attorney, we'll forward it to Clark, and so on. This show is about guns, politics related thereto, and self-defense issues. We always start out with a couple of self-defense cases. There are several hundred cases in the United States every week of people using firearms for self-defense. They generally don't make the news because nobody cares unless it's some wrongful use of a firearm, at least if you're there in the major media. So we like to start out with a few of those for our listeners' education. Some are good, some are bad. They're all on the outline here because they express something that gun owners should be aware of. So you can look at what they did and we'll critique what they did and what they could have done better or worse, perhaps. We never put names in those because our object of reviewing those cases is for what happened, not for who the people are and so forth. And we've got a good bit tonight on the recent events today when our commander-in-chief made some comments about how he wants to change gun laws. Been on the phone most of the day with media outlets talking about that. So we're going to look at a few things, constitutional and otherwise, that our fearless leader is planning to do to the gun world. First off, a couple of self-defense cases. This is from the Monterey Herald. It's in Seaside, California. This is on the 30th, last year, 30th of December. An intruder tried to forcefully enter a home in the Marshall Park area of the Ord military community, but was confronted and shot by a resident. The Presidio of Monterey Police Department said the man tried to enter the home about 12:30 p.m. afternoon. Two male residents were inside. One engaged the intruder in a physical fight, while the other went to retrieve a gun. There was a struggle for the weapon. Two shots were fired, one of which struck the intruder in the torso. Arriving police found the intruder unconscious. He was taken to a medical center in Salinas where he's being treated. Then the story says the gun appears to be legally owned. The resident who fired the shots was taken to the police station for questioning, but is not suspected of a crime. The investigation is ongoing. California, apparently the press is more worried about, the police are more worried about whether the gun was legal or not.
If it was a bad gun, no, bad gun.
It had more than a 10-round magazine. But, you know, I mean, seriously, though, even, you know, in Las Vegas, something like this happens, you're going to have to go down and have a chat with Metro at some point. The best course of action is to do it not right after the incident, but after you've had a chance to calm down, collect your wits, and retain legal counsel.
Yeah, you're going to be a little upset when it's out. Now, apparently this guy's not going to die from his wound, but
I think that's one of the things that we talk about in our concealed weapons permit class too. When a law enforcement officer is involved in an officer-involved shooting, one of the things they do is don't talk and make a statement right away as well. So one of the things we encourage is not to make an initial statement, because you got to collect your wits. You're probably going to be a little shook up. You want to make sure you get all your facts straight and you remember as much detail as possible, but you still want to be as cooperative as you can as well.
Yeah,
So-
I always worry about these guys in California when, you know, he may have had a magazine that held more than 10 shots, or
The gun was black colored. That would be terrible. I mean, that.
we get these cases in California, and I apologize to California residents. Sometimes you end up doing more time than the guy who broke into the
Sure,
house,
right.
because your gun law violations, because you had too many bullets or whatever. I'm saying bullets instead of
Overshadowed the
cartridges
actual
now.
crime that was in progress.
Yeah, in the crime, all we got is a B&E, breaking and entering. It was a home invasion, but hopefully the guy didn't have a 15-shot magazine and had his gun registered, and so, you know. Anyway, we do offer, I want to mention, free concealed carry permit classes every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. You can find the classes on our website, thegunstorelasvegas.com. And while we're at it, we've got CES opening in town tomorrow. If you'd like the chance to shoot a machine gun or plan a corporate event relating to that, we do that on indoor range. You can contact Melissa at thegunstorelasvegas.com, and she will get you all set up. I get to run all the commercials I want.
That's a good
It's my
thing.
show.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
WDTV5 in Harris County, West Virginia. This is on the 29th of December. Deputies say a woman who stabbed a man at the Go-Mart store last week around 9 p.m. did so in self-defense. They say the suspect, who was from Alabama, went to the store to buy alcohol, but employees wouldn't sell him any because of his apparent level of intoxication. All right. Then he tried to steal some small item, and the woman working there, along with her fiance, who was standing around, confronted the thief. The suspect started a physical fight with the fiance. The woman broke up the fight, and the suspect left. The fiance went out to see if the suspect had actually left the property, and there was another altercation between the two men outside the store. The woman came out again, tried to stop the fight. That's when the suspect apparently grabbed her by the throat, shoved her up against a car. She was able to pull out a knife and stab her attacker. When police arrived at the store, the intoxicated and now wounded suspect walked back into the store. Everybody, I assume, went, that's him.
Genius.
Anyway, he was rushed to United Medical Hospital Center with a serious injury to his leg. Police are investigating. State police also responded. The injured suspect is in jail, charged with misdemeanor battery. There's a lot of object lessons in this one. One of the first is when the antagonist leaves the store,
Yeah.
your house, wherever it takes place, call 911.
Don't
and
chase after him.
It's not your responsibility to be the police.
Yeah,
The most important thing to do is avoid it if you can.
yeah.
So-
Here we have a guy who's already been in a fight with the fiance, so the fiance follows him out the door. What does he expect?
Yeah.
You're going to get in another fight,
Mhm.
of course. Following combative suspects generally leads to more combat.
Yeah, and you can, if you're not careful, you can run into some problems with who original aggressor versus continued aggressor is, and At some point, if it's bad enough, the
Doesn't
fact that
become
the
mutual
fiance
comfort
followed out the guy can now become the new original aggressor and lose his ability of self-defense if the other guy says, I'm defending myself. So it gets, when you start following him out, it gets really sticky.
Yeah, we changed the whole parameter of who supplied the force for the confrontation.
Exactly.
You came to the bad guy. He says, I'm defending myself because the guy was following me and I was afraid for my life or whatever. Don't be a cheap fiance. Your girlfriend had to stab a guy that's trying, fire a gun, you know?
In the long run, it's cheaper because then he won't have to stand in the store with her every day
Right.
while she's working, right?
Apparently that's why he's there. This is a bad neighborhood and so forth, and they have these kind of problems. And, you know, buy her a pistol. Don't be a jerk. You know, this is the love of your life. Buy her a gun. Again, questions or comments can be directed to bob@firedupmail.com, and please friend us on Facebook if you get an opportunity to do that. While we're talking about a lady defending herself here with a knife, we do offer a ladies only shooting and personal safety class. Second Thursday of each month. It's taught by a female instructor we have here, Maggie Mordaunt, who is internationally known, she says. No, very, very good instructor. Her next class is Thursday, January 14th, this upcoming week. So if you'd like to get into that class, the information's on our website, thegunstorelasvegas.com. We normally can hold 12 or 15 ladies in that class, so you can sign up online and get in. Good class. You will be, it's classroom, how to be safe, just tear gas and various things, and take you in the range and practice with you shooting your gun. Very educational, very popular class. You will love it. Come take the class. This is my weekly Texas case. Texas has different rules. Don't do what Texans do if you live anywhere else. Yeah.
They have an expanded idea of what.
They have an expanded idea whether you can shoot people who you need to shoot or just people that kind of deserve it. But it only works in Texas. This is Fox 29 San Antonio on the 2nd. Man and his 15-year-old son were traveling east on Colbera Road around 12 a.m. Saturday, midnight. They stopped at a red light at an intersection. A small silver and white compact car pulls up next to them on the right side. The guy, they're both at the light. One of the guys in the little car gets out, walks around the SUV to the driver's side, and tries to pull the driver out of the car. The victim resisted. The suspect then pulled a gun and fired a couple of shots, apparently directed nowhere, just to scare the guy into letting him pull him out of the car, steal the car.
That's one of the things that we say warning shots should never be used. Yeah, there's a reason for that.
Yeah. Anyway, those two didn't hit anybody, but he tried to pull the guy out of the car. The suspect fired these two shots. The intended victim is a CCW permit holder, so he pulled out his gun and returned fire at the guy.
Probably aiming more for the guy than not than the guy was.
Probably. The suspect then runs around back to his original car, jumps in, and they sped off. Now we get into the Texas part. The man driving the SUV told police he emptied his gun at the suspect's vehicle as it drove away.
Don't do that.
Unless you're in San Antonio.
Unless you're in San Antonio. And it was in Texas, so he probably had a 17 or 18 round magazine.
Or a 33 round magazine.
Or a 33 round magazine.
Anyway, so then the victim drove to a nearby gas station, called police. EMS was dispatched to check out the 15-year-old, the victim's son. He was obviously wound over this, all this gunfire. Police are investigating the attempted carjacking and searching for suspects. The serious part of this, obviously, if he had not been armed, hadn't been a CCW holder, who knows what would have happened. Mm-hmm. The father's going to get jerked out of the car. The 15-year-old boy is in the car. There are alternative solutions here, of course, rather than firing at the fleeing vehicle. One you might look at is avoid it by driving away. Mm-hmm. You're stopped at a red light. assuming there's not cross traffic, perhaps he could have just made an illegal turn against the
Right.
light and driven away. We're not there, so it's hard to tell all the various things, but hopefully he didn't hit anyone emptying his gun. Apparently not, or we'd have heard about it.
Right, and that
Because-
that could have caused him some
Yeah.
problems.
Then you're liable. You're allowed in Texas to fire to stop fleeing criminals and recover property they steal from you and so on. Not anywhere else. But had that one of those rounds hit a disinterested third party,
Your checkbook would be following that bullet.
Yeah,
and,
something that we
and
talk about.
perhaps a murder charge against the guy you're shooting at, but might be against you too,
Mhm.
depending
Absolutely.
on. Anyway, he didn't hit anybody. We haven't heard. Once you're safe, never shoot at a fleeing vehicle and or suspect in the vehicle. Nothing good ever comes from that.
No.
You cannot win. If you hit the guy, you get sued for shooting a guy. Other in Texas, you get sued for
Well, there's
shooting a guy
one
in the
small
back.
benefit. You're going to get a very big check.
Yes,
So you benefit.
absolutely.
But the person who was at fault or doesn't benefit.
Yeah.
I guess that's what we're saying.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, nothing good comes from firing at a guy who's running away. If you're safe, you're safe. If he's running away with your child under his arm, you still probably don't want to fire at that. But if they're leaving, let them leave and let the police do their job. They'll track him down eventually. Reminder, we do offer free concealed carry classes 3 days a week here on our website, thegunstorelasvegas.com. You'll learn not to do that. Don't empty your gun at the fleeing vehicle. Well, it's really cool to do if you're in Texas.
Or a movie,
Mhm.
which is, I guess, why people do that.
This is another one of these things. This wasn't on the outline I sent you guys. It just came in, but this is on the 3rd of this month in Springfield, Missouri. A woman and her family stopped to get gas at Rapid Roberts. It's a gas station chain apparently in Missouri on Sunday when a man approached their car acting strange. She was in the vehicle with her 4 children, all under the age of 8, while her husband was pumping gas. She reached over to try and lock the doors as this guy walked up to the car, but she accidentally hit the wrong button and rolled the window down.
Sounds like my wife.
The suspect then opened the door, leaned in the car, and brandishing a long knife. She yelled at her husband to get his gun. The suspect then said to her, "You're lucky he has a gun." He shut the door and started to back away. The husband pointed his Beretta handgun at the man and called 911 as the man slowly walked away. He didn't shoot him in the back.
He's smart.
Now,
Yeah.
He's trying to not write a check is what he's
Right.
trying to do, right?
not
And
entirely.
it's-
The family then began to follow the man in their vehicle as he walked down Sunshine Street. I don't put street names, but that just seemed really cute.
Right.
He unsuccessfully tried to get in some other cars that were waiting at a nearby intersection. The police then arrived and arrested this 42-year-old guy in connection with the incident. According to the police probable cause statement, the suspect said to the police he believes the vehicles at Rapid Roberts parking lot were sent there by his cousin to do surveillance on him. He allegedly said he leaned into the victim's vehicle to tell them to stop following him. He has been charged with 2 counts of unlawful use of a weapon. I like these cases because we get people all the time, I know you get them in CCW class, that say, I only carry my gun when I'm going to a bad neighborhood or da-da-da.
You never know where the bad neighborhood's going
You
to be.
never know exactly when that
Sometimes
magic moment is
They
going to
come
visit
to
you.
you. This is apparently a open gas station, no problems,
Yeah.
whatever. And this wacko just wanders in thinking, that
Yeah.
you're the enemy because you've been assigned by his cousin to follow you and whatever. He's crazy. You can't account for him.
Mhm.
Always carry your gun.
Yes,
It's Murphy's Law.
it is. And some in this case, in this story that we've talked about several times, the verbal warning of "get your gun" was enough to stop him and
Even
get
get the
him
crazy guy to back
even
off.
get the crazy guy to back off. As far as following him in their vehicle, at least they weren't following him and hanging out the window shooting at him. But
That was from the previous story. That's
Yeah.
from Texas.
Because it wasn't Texas.
It wasn't
right?
Texas.
But this is just a perfect example, and I've had, it drives me crazy when people say that
Mhm.
I don't carry my gun unless I'm going to someplace dangerous. If you're going to someplace dangerous, don't go. You carry your gun.
Again, avoid, right?
Right.
Is the bottom of that
Yeah.
pyramid. that
Why
we
are you
talk about.
going there if it's dangerous? Anyway, again, you can send us questions or comments to bob@firedupmail.com, and please friend us on Facebook. I think I got Facebook on that one. I got the contact information there to send us questions and comments.
We're gonna need to get you 2 signs.
Yeah, well, I got, these are cute. I'm going to make these myself. I'm going to print one upside down so, it turns
We're going to have
around.
it show up on the computer.
a lot of
from
work.
now on.
There
Like
you
a
go.
watermark.
Yeah, just kind of the
It'll be
Ticker
like
thing,
a ticker
yeah.
thing going off, right?
absolutely.
It's progress. We actually don't
These
use
two guys
paper that much
actually
anymore.
run computers. Art runs all this stuff with PowerPoint and whatever, pictures of sites that move and things in this class. It's really impressive. I just hold my fingers up and go, the sites look like this, But it worked for me for years, and it still works for me because I can't work as a computer. The gun store has a wedding chapel. If you're not aware of that, you want to have a really memorable
Really?
shotgun wedding or a vow renewal. We can do simple ceremonies to whole packages with flowers and whatever, and Elvis impersonator.
Do we have
I
a
can't do that with a straight face.
person on staff that is
Well, no, because the Elvis glasses, I got them, they wouldn't fit. But we have an Elvis available if we need to do an Elvis wedding. Anyway, if you go to thegunstorelasvegas.com, click special events, the weddings will come up. And again, Melissa can organize all that stuff for you. That's really all the self-defense stories I want to go on to tonight, because we've got this humongous thing going on with the president and his newly announced plan to save us all from gun violence, which I have been over and over again. Most of it, we're going to come. There's 4 or 5 things that we know are going to be in that final bill. He said a lot of one-line things. We're going to have all gun sellers be licensed and do background checks, eliminating the backyard dealers and hobby dealers and so forth. One line. He has a lot of proposals that sound great as one-liners that are so impractical in the real world. I don't know what he's thinking. One at a time. There's 5 or 6.
politicians do that though, because they
5 or
want to
6.
seem like they're doing something.
Right.
So,
His first comment was all gun sellers should be licensed, so they have to conduct background checks, which overturns the current exemption. So if you sell something online or you sell to a private party at a gun show or in the parking lot of a gun show, we're going to make everybody get a federal firearms license that sells guns. And
Well, let's go back to the personal FFLs then. That seemed to work truly fine back in the day.
when everybody was a gun dealer.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have gun dealer licenses. The scuttlebutt from the media is that the number they're looking at to trip this clause that you have to have a FFL license is if you sell 2 guns in 1 year. Pretty low. So you're allowed to sell a gun from your personal collection or your grandfather's shotgun, but if you sell 2 guns, then you have to get a federal firearms license. That sounds pretty simple. You just pay your license. But of course, it's not that simple because there's way more involved than just getting an FFL license. Now, the FFL license, you can get, they cost $150 for a 3-year license. That's so they sell them now in 3-year increments. You fill out a form and you send it in with $150 and a background check, and you get your FFL according to the president, but it doesn't actually work that way. FFLs, when you have a firearms license, it triggers a lot of other things that you have to have in excess of that. Most states, including Nevada, require, for instance, that you have a storefront. If the ATF comes to look at your license, they want to see your license premise. that it's a retail location and that it's legal for you to have a business in that location. In Henderson, for instance, we have cottage trade. You're allowed to have a business of certain types in your home. In Las Vegas or the county, you're not. It has to be a storefront if it deals with commercial trade.
You have to get a business license too.
So you need a business license. You got state licensing here for any business. You have then city and county licensing, which all come with their own stipulations for having insurance and having building security and
Fees.
on and on and on and on. The things you have
Most
to do,
importantly, fees.
all with the appropriate fees. So you're looking at, you don't just go get an FFL. If you live here where we are, you get an FFL, then you get a state license, you get a city or county license, you get a storefront, you're leasing, you get and you're looking, we just roughed it out from what we're paying for our licensing fees to a little over $4,000 a year, just to meet the state minimum.
So you can lose money to sell those two guns, is what you're saying.
You lose a lot of
Yeah.
money to sell those
Well,
two guns.
You need to charge sales tax if
Yeah.
you have a
Yeah.
retail business. So you got to put a bond up with sales tax or deposit and fill in the forms, even if you have no sales tax that month. You didn't sell your gun that month. So you still have to file a form and so forth and so on. It's about $4,000 and a stack of paperwork about that tall. So the hobby dealers that are literally really selling one or two guns, they're selling guns from their grandfather who left them or whatever. They're never going to come up with a cost to do this. So what will happen with this, everybody who sells two guns or more gets an FFL, means that all hobby dealers are done. Yeah, they're done. And when I was talking to a reporter today about this, he said, well, isn't that good for you? And I said, they don't sell enough guns to make any difference at all. And I'm more of a gun rights guy than I am that self-centered that I'm worried about some guy down the street is selling two guns a year. I don't really care. They don't affect us. This is bad for the gun industry. It's bad for the United States to make this rule and bury all these people that want to sell granddad's shotguns.
Well, I was going to say, if your grandfather dies and leaves you 50 guns that you don't want, it would take you 50 years to sell them.
If you stay under the minimum, yeah,
Yes.
to do that. Well, the question came up, in one of my guys that works here when I brought this point up. He said, well, what if the guy, then he doesn't want to get a license, he just comes in and sells the guns to us?
Right.
Well, there's nothing in Obama's say that says you can sell the guns to a dealer. It says you can't sell the guns without a license.
Oh, so you can't even transfer them.
It doesn't say that. They're writing, this is just the one-liners, and they have to write the regulations with us. And I'm sure they'll allow private citizens still to sell guns to dealers.
Somehow, yeah.
But Obama didn't say that, so you may be stuck.
Well, it's because
They
he's just
missed
pulling
that.
stuff out of his ear and he doesn't have any idea what he's talking about.
He has no idea the complication of this and all the other regulations. And I wouldn't expect him to. He's busy, handling Benghazi or whatever
he's not.
handling, or yeah.
But he came from a state where they raised such a ruckus that 2012 they enacted their own CCL program, concealed carry license program.
Yeah.
Because they thought it was important for people to be able to get a permit.
Anyway, this ain't going to happen. So the closet dealers, basically the hobby dealers, and I'm not talking about the 7 guys they found that are selling 20 guns at the gun show every week,
Right.
that are actually dealers
That should
and
get a
making a
license.
living, that should
Yeah.
be licensed.
Yeah.
Of course they should be licensed. But the real hobby dealers, it's going to kill them. I mean, just absolutely kill them. He also said that states must provide information on disqualified people that have mental illness or domestic violence convictions. A lot of the states do not turn into the federal government their list of people who are prohibited
Persons.
buyers. Yes, prohibited persons.
Right.
The people that are convicted of domestic violence, a domestic violence misdemeanor prevents you from possessing firearms. It's the only misdemeanor crime we have, actually, that stops you from having guns. That's a good thing. The perps who beat their wives should be prohibited from having guns. I think that's a valid rule. The second part of it, if you have mental illness, you shouldn't be able to buy a gun. Now we're in the woods. What is mental
mental
definition
illness.
for that, yeah.
Right.
Because part of the problem is a lot of times when military people come off of active duty, they're encouraged through the paperwork process of separation to check that they're suffering from PTSD so they can get therapy, for example. But part of the problem with that is that opens a can of worms for them because they're not allowed
Right.
to own a gun because
And-
technically
yeah.
they're mentally ill.
And the
A lot of those
VA,
vets
the
don't know
VA
that.
already enforces that.
Yeah.
If you're living in a VA facility or supported facility, and you have help
Yeah.
balancing your checkbook or paying your rent, you can have guns. The VA's
Okay.
done that for years. They're looking at doing that with Social Security now.
Yeah.
And which bothers me because so I get Social Security, and there's lots of people whose opinion is that I'm mentally unstable. So maybe I can't have guns either. But getting back to the problem of mental illness, if you just say from the White House, people with mental illness shouldn't have guns, in general, you can agree with that statement. But where do we draw the line? What's mental illness?
That's
Is
true.
it
Yeah.
a prescription for antidepressant?
Antidepressant.
Does that
Yeah.
mean you can't have a gun?
No.
Seeing a therapist to talk about your problems, that could be,
This certainly I think this will have the reverse effect. It'll discourage people like the VA rule does.
from reporting.
They don't report themselves and get help because they'll have to give up their gun if they do that. They know that. And some of you on Social Security are going to cover that because it's not in this list, but the Social Security Administration is looking at doing the same thing the VA does by rule, that if you're living in Social Security assisted housing and have asked for help with everyday menial mental tasks, then you are self-admitting to be incompetent and they don't want you having a gun on their property. It's the same thing. But anyway, that's not the subject.
And then the
law.
little thing you popped down here about HIPAA, because
That was my
HIPAA,
concern.
HIPAA was passed by Congress and is law. And how is he going to comport the mental illness with the HIPAA regulations? Because HIPAA regulations are very strict and as to what medical information can be given to who.
So this is the one that puts the doctors in the bind and the therapists in the bind.
Yeah.
Do you report this guy?
And
And
they're
then
very,
gets
very
sued.
serious fines too.
Yeah, and then
Very, very serious fines.
the courts look at it and go, no, the guy wasn't mentally ill and they've never tried to move his guns, and they sue the doctor for HIPAA violations that he reported this to the government. There's a can of worms here that will take 5,000 pages of regulations and still screw
And more
half the
bureaucracy.
people.
Yes.
More bureaucracy for sure.
Absolutely. The HIPAA thing is going to be a big problem. He added the FBI will increase their workforce for processing background checks by 50%, hiring 230 new background check examiners. I don't have a problem with that.
That would
If
speed
we're
up
gonna
our
do
permits,
background
right?
checks.
It might not take 120 days. That would be a good thing.
Yeah, we're on gun show weekends and so forth. We have to call in Brady's. We call them into the state, but then the state contacts the FBI, and the FBI gets backed up. When we're busy now because of this thing we're talking about. We're busy,
Sure.
and it's causing backup. So in 60 to 90 days, when these 230 new examiners are hired, there'll have more people doing background checks. So hopefully we'll get the background checks faster and not leave the guy standing here for 4 hours or 4 days waiting
Well, good.
to see if.
Let's hire some more
He's
ATF guys so we
allowed.
don't have to wait 9 months for our class 3s.
Well,
too.
that's in here too. They're going to hire, I didn't put any, but they're going to hire another 200 ATF agents, but that's not for your class 3
Oh.
paperwork.
Well, that's
Those
really
guys are to find all these closet dealers who are
Nice.
selling guns now unlawfully because they're not doing background checks. That's a great theory that we're going to hire another 200 ATF agents. But if you sell a pistol to your next door neighbor, we'll call him Scott. And inside joke.
He looks like a Scott.
How does the ATF discover that and then arrest you and him
right.
for the illegal transaction without a background? Oh, selling two guns.
Probably because they're already listening to our emails, text messages.
Yeah, they'll have some help from
And
the
somehow we texted back and
NASA.
forth and said, hey,
they'll have help from
And
good thing I
NASA,
got rid of
NSA.
that. Good thing I got rid of that gun the other day. So
Yeah, well,
Nothing's private anymore. so,
the 200 ATF agents are not going to be used to arrest gun law violators. They're going to be used to find the closet dealers that are doing this, according to what the president said. If they put them on gang enforcement and put gangbangers off the street, I'd be all for it.
Yeah, that would be actually something that would decrease gun violence.
Yeah, because you take the guy that's doing it and you put him in jail and lock him up, and there's your tax money well spent, criminals off the street. Also, he said Congress will be asked to invest $500 million or 339 million pounds. I pulled this off a BBC website.
I was going to say, are they going to hire
they're going to hire
British guys
with the exchange rate? It works out more favorably that way.
Anyway, he's going to ask Congress to spend $500 million to improve access to mental health care. Great. It's not a gun issue. There's nothing to do with gun violence, whatever. He just threw it in there.
But that goes back up to this one, because if you're going to take the guns away from the people who seek the care, you don't need to improve access to it, because nobody's going to go, because if they do, they're going to get their guns taken away. And it's all catch-22.
That's a slush fund right there.
Right. Yeah.
I see that happening right now.
Well, I mean, the improving healthcare, mental health care is great. We've got a lot of people, street people and whatever, that need mental health care, obviously, around the country here and there. I'm all for providing them. We'll call this, for the taxpayers, this is Obamacare for wackos. I'm sure it will be handled in a fiscally responsible manner.
Just like regular Obamacare is, yes.
It's just in there for, this makes me look good. I'm going to provide health care for wackos. That's fine. They need it. I'm not sure throwing more money at the problem is the solution. And he's going to ask the Departments of Defense, Department of Justice, and Homeland Security to explore smart gun technology. That's the stuff where you put a computer chip in your gun or something so nobody can fire it but you.
They got to give the gun a test like that. It's an SAT test for guns now.
Yes.
They got to pass it in order for the gun to graduate and you can buy it that way.
And it's always good putting the government bureaucracy in charge of technology.
That didn't work well in California. Remember they were demanding the smart bullet technology, the micro stamping?
Yeah, well, all of that is great. For those of you who are not familiar with smart gun technology, it's some reader that reads your fingerprint or reads a wristband that's magnetic. That's one of the worst ones. That nobody can fire the gun unless they have your fingerprint or they read your electronic wristband is close enough to the gun to make it fire. They've tried those in police work for years to save officers when there's a gun snatch.
Right.
And the problem is, of course, with the readers is the officer's wearing gloves or he's got blood on his hand from a fight or whatever, and the fingerprint reader can't read it.
So he
can't open his holster. He can't fire his gun if he gets his gun out.
I see.
What it will do, again, improving smart gun technology will have no actual bearing on gun violence.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it will
spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
It'll probably make the lives safer for some criminals.
Well, yeah, because if they get the smart gun technology and their gun doesn't work, then criminals won't get shot.
Right.
So we'll actually save lives by criminals not getting killed.
The guns can't be bought by the criminals anyway, so the smart technology, they won't have access to it anyway.
Yes, because criminals don't ever have guns.
Because they can't own the guns anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
They'll all have dumb guns.
Yes.
All of this stuff.
How many days until we get a Republican president and this gets repealed?
I didn't look at my Obama clock today, but it's getting down toward 300, I think. Everybody that is running for president other than Hillary has agreed to void all this stuff, because what we're looking at here basically, ladies and gentlemen, is a total waste of time, which will add to the paperwork dramatically and probably not reduce crime. The president said if we save one life, it's all worth it. And I'm sorry, that sounds horrible to say, but if we want to save one life, we could lower the speed limit to 15 miles an hour, and we'd save 50,000 children's lives every year.
Well, we could ban all black cars because black is bad looking. So if we ban those cars, there would be less,
Well, we should,
accidents.
Did
we
you
should,
invite him?
so-
What is that?
no, we should just ban all cars because the last mass killing in Las Vegas or mass attack was with a car.
Right.
So we should just ban all the cars.
It'd be better on the environment.
It would. See, we'd save the environment and all the people's lives.
And
We'll
lower
go back to horses.
oil prices.
Lower oil prices.
Can't get much lower.
You can get a lot
Apparently
of-
Saudi Arabia's going to go bankrupt now, out of cash in 5 years because the
This-
gas is so low.
This started as a serious show, but we're turning into a comedy. Anyway, the point of this whole thing is what the president is suggesting here is ineffective. It will not reduce gun violence, but it will create problems with HIPAA. It'll create problems with people who want to sell granddad's gun. It'll make criminals out of a whole lot of people. And the bad guys aren't going to do this anyway. They're already criminals. They're not worried about smart gun technology. They have dumb guns that work every time.
They figured that out in Australia because they had a huge gun guy buyback problem where the government bought back all of the guns because they didn't want the public to have guns. And what they found after that is all violent crime went up because the law-abiding citizens turned their guns in, but the criminals didn't.
Yeah, we have a guy in Florida, a city councilman that has now advocated kind of through the Black Lives Matter thing that if the police are trying to arrest people who steal bubble gum and things like that, the people should throw bottles and bricks at
Right?
them.
Yes, I read that. Yeah,
He's a city councilman. So
he
Wow.
didn't want people coming through his jurisdiction for crimes that were committed outside of that jurisdiction. His opinion was if law enforcement came from another county or city into his county in order to try and catch those bad guys, that people should be throwing rocks and bricks and bottles at them, which a lot of folks
That's
have an
helpful.
exception to.
Yeah, I would
So-
hope so.
Okay, well, we got a couple more goofy things here. So besides the president's goofy thing, LA Times reported now 2 weeks ago on the 15th of December, in the wake of terrorist attacks that killed 14 people in San Bernardino, we're familiar with, they're considering toughening local gun regulations, including a requirement for gun owners to buy insurance. So they have liability insurance if they should shoot somebody. The insurance policy will be similar to car insurance, is the idea of making payments to offset the cost of victims and public agencies if the policyholder's gun is used to injure or kill someone. That's
Wow.
interesting when it fleshes out. If you don't have insurance, that means you can't have a
Can't have
gun.
again.
If
So
you don't have
who's going to
insurance,
be
you
selling the
theoretically can't
insurance?
drive a
Are
car.
they going to get State Farm to start selling this insurance? Is the county going to sell the insurance? And what is the cost of such insurance?
Well, and why
going
would
to
you
be?
want to have to buy insurance? If you have homeowners insurance or renter's insurance, you're covered anyway. So they're forcing you to buy another policy for coverage you already have.
No. Most homeowners insurances and apartment dwellers insurance only covers you for accidents. If you shoot a burglar, that's an intentional firing of your gun and not covered. We've talked about this on a couple of shows.
Okay.
You can get riders for your insurance policy that will cover gun use in defending your home and so forth, but it's a separate rider. Generally, liability insurance covers you only for accidents, not for intentional shootings.
Interesting.
So if you're firing at a burglar, that is not an accident. So
So
if he sues
You
you,
have to check your
the insurance
policy
company is
is what
going
you're
to say
saying.
that was an intentional act, it's not covered, and they do that
Okay.
frequently. So you can get a rider for that from most companies that will cover what they want to cover here. I want to mention also, if you're getting printing done, American Printing downtown on Fremont Street is one of our sponsors and helpers. They do a lot of our books and print my books and a lot of our flyers and things. The phone number and whatnot is impossible to do on the air, but remember American Printing, it's downtown on Fremont Street, 1512 East Fremont. Give them a shout and have them bid on your thing, and I think you will like their products and service. That this is a non-paid commercial. This is just me because I like them folks. Family business, been there for 100 years like we have, and actually been there 35 years about the same time I've had this store. Guns America has reported a proposed law in New York.
Here we go.
You've got, this is New York State.
Yeah.
We all know that bad guys use a lot of ammunition, and the theory here is you restrict ammunition, then you don't have shootings, because, you know, I think Chris Rock did this one time. They had no bullet. You charge $1,000 for a bullet.
Right.
People would be shooting each other because ammo costs money. Anyway, the New York lawmakers proposed restricting the amount of ammunition you can buy at any one time to twice the firearms capacity every 3 months. So if you have a pistol that holds 10 rounds, it's not going to be more than that in New York, then you can buy 20 rounds of ammunition every 3 months for that gun.
Okay.
So that means you're going to do a lot of dry fire practice.
You're going to have a bunch of people carrying guns that are out of practice and are going to be more dangerous, because when they go to shoot, they haven't shot for a year, and they're going to just be.
Well, yeah, but my question was, when they do this and they say, okay, we're starting from this square one, January, February, March. At the end of March, you have a 10-shot gun. You
Right.
can buy 20 rounds of ammunition.
Why don't they just go over the bridge to New Jersey and buy it over there?
Probably can't, not if it's hollow points, but anyway, if you have a revolver that holds 5,
10. You were a lucky guy.
you can only buy 10 rounds. My question would be, if you use the gun in self-defense and you shot 2 rounds, can you go buy 2 more with the police report as evidence that you legally expended?
Right?
Yeah, because if you shoot all 10 of your bullets at the first guy,
You're out.
and you can't buy ammo for 3
We have a
months.
rock for the next 2.5 months.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
So
And then
this is just hysterical.
Art brings up a great question. What's stopping you from driving to another state, loading your trunk up, and coming back?
Oh, well, when they do this, they have to make it illegal to import ammo.
And
But
what about all those folks
They have
who
to know what guns you
compete?
own.
Yeah.
So you can buy 20 rounds for your 40 Smith & Wesson and 20 rounds for your 9mm.
So
You can
everybody
have more
run
than
out
one
and
gun.
buy 30 9mm.
No. Well, maybe you could. If you have 2 9mm, can
Yeah.
you buy twice the amount of ammo?
Sure, because it's per gun.
But then what about those folks who actually compete for, I don't know, IPDA or IPSC or
Yeah,
Some
no
sort of-
more.
they'll
No,
shoot
they-
more than 20
no,
rounds
no,
on their
no,
one competition.
They use way too much ammunition.
Yeah.
They're probably terrorists.
And and then not to beat a dead horse, but going back to the bad guys, I'm really happy that New York has no illegal drugs being smuggled into the city or the state by bad guys, because that's you
They
can
would
stop the
probably
illegal
smuggle
drugs, then
ammunition.
you can stop the smuggling of ammunition in by bad guys.
Can you imagine the paperwork for dealers? A guy comes in and you want to buy 7 rounds for your whatever, and they have to sell it by the round. You have to verify with the state that the guy owns this type of gun, and he hasn't bought ammunition already from some other dealer.
Yeah.
So there's going to be this huge computer program to determine where every bullet is. I got 2 people I pay full time just to keep track of guns, let alone each round of ammunition. This is
They have some
Anyway,
silliness like this in
the
California.
NRA. I thought they were very clear, and they did a wonderful dissertation on this proposed law. They said this is one of the most absurd bills being introduced in the entire country.
And they're right.
End of story with
Yeah.
one sentence.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Wow, we're going to run short here. I wanted to talk to why don't we do this after the break? I've got one more story about a Court of Appeals case. It's going to be a little complicated. And we're getting close to running out of time. So let me talk about the week's events and the gun shows and so forth that are coming up. Then we'll do this after the break. At 6 o'clock, about 5 minutes, we're going to go off the air for radio. We have an hour-long time frame. We're going to stay on the air for about another 10 minutes to talk about a case here with a BB gun, interesting problem that I outlined for Clark.
Scott, this is your area of expertise.
Yes.
Complicated. Yeah, he's a BB gun kind of guy. And, well, whatever. That's complicated. let me do some ending notes here. We got gun shows coming up. This next weekend, January 16th to 17th, the Henderson Convention Center. There is a Western Trails Gun and Knife show there. The gun store will not be there. We don't display at their show for a variety of reasons, but it's a nice little gun show if you want to go down there and see the people. There should be a lot of little parts and stuff. It's kind of a homey little show, and you'll find a lot of guys there that selling stuff that is out of their garage and a lot of odds and ends. We will go down there and look for parts.
Hopefully no closet dealers yet.
They're only going to be selling less
Well,
than
yeah, and I
$2.
don't, with the presidential decree thing, I don't know when that starts.
Right.
Now, he's going to do an interview on CNN with the guy with gray hair, whatever. They're all, we all have gray hair.
Anderson Cooper.
Anderson Cooper, that guy. About what he's doing, and maybe they'll flesh that out. It's going to be on Thursday night, I think at 5 o'clock our time, or yeah, I believe it is, but on CNN, it's on CNN. You can, the president's going to flesh out some of these things that we've questioned here. Anyway, the weekend after that is the Las Vegas Gun Show at the Sports Center up the road here from us on Sunset, just west of Las Vegas Boulevard, where they have the golf course and the go-karts and things. We will be there selling our brass at the Sports Center, and I'll try and have an attorney up there Saturday if you want to talk to somebody about a question you have you don't want to put on the internet and ask me, which I understand at this point, because we got to assume that NSA is reading everybody's email. So we'll be up there. March 5 and 6, Crossroads of the West is at Cashman Field downtown. The Rocky Mountain Gun Show, which is normally at South Point, is not there at the moment. They have canceled all of their trade shows because they don't sell enough hotel rooms with them.
Oh.
So Rocky Mountain is currently looking for another venue. They may have one by the time we do next week's show to put their show. They want to stay in the Henderson area. The convention center at Henderson is too small. And basically, they didn't do anything wrong, but in South Point is not being anti-gun. They just didn't want the show because it doesn't sell hotel rooms. It draws all locals, and their hotel rooms are empty,
Isn't that a good
and
thing?
the showroom's empty. No, they got.
I like locals.
Right?
They don't. No, they
we
need to.
go to the movie theater
they
and the
need
bowling
to-
alley and stuff, we do some other things.
I knew you were a bowler somehow. There's a sport for you. We'll be back next Tuesday at 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. right here on 1400 AM KSHP and on YouTube at Fired Up with Bob Irwin. If you would like, if you have a group or where you need a guest speaker to come in for your convention, our attorneys or myself are available to talk to your group. You can call the office number at 702-333-0033. That's on our website also. I don't monitor that phone unless I happen to see it blinking. So don't leave questions for the show on there because I probably won't listen to it for a week. But you can get a hold of us there or through bob@firedupmail.com. Thanks for listening in on the radio. We should be about a minute away.
And don't forget, everyone, get your permit. Come to the gun store or come to another store, but come and get your permit.
We are looking at adding now Utah permits again.
That's
because
right.
Art teaches that. We're going to add it on
Starting this month, we'll be offering Utah as well as Florida, as well as Nevada, which is important.
on Wednesday and Saturday. Or Monday and
Saturday, Monday.
Monday and Saturday, not on the Wednesday class at the moment. So we'll add that starting up next week. You can get a Utah permit too if you want. The guy is telling me to wind up. We're going off the air. Thanks for listening to us on KSHP 1400 AM. We'll be, just stay tuned if you're on YouTube, or when you get home, turn on YouTube. You'll find our show on the air, hopefully, and you can watch the part you're about to miss if you're on the radio. Thanks for listening.
Bye, everyone.
We'll listen to you next week. And we're on now.
Did we talk too much? Sorry.
No, that's fine. This goofy case. Let me read what's happening here. This is in the Minnesota Court of Appeals, right at the end of last year on the 28th of December. They upheld a statute they have in Minnesota that defines BB guns as firearms when they are held by prohibited persons, felons or white beaters or whatever. The decision comes as bad news for this 37-year-old defendant who was found guilty of possessing a firearm and now because he's a felon, faces a 5-year sentence. Police searched his car after discovering he was in violation of a no contact order, had his girlfriend with him, and they've got a no contact order between them.
Oh, so she was in the car.
She was
Yeah.
in the car.
Voluntarily.
Voluntarily.
Yeah, and the
Yes.
officer
Happens all
knew
the time.
that he's a prohibited person. They're not supposed to have contact. So he pulled him over to see, what's going on. Are you being kidnapped, lady, or is this voluntary?
Are you here because you want to be?
Yeah, and it was apparently voluntary. But anyway, a CO2 powered BB gun was found in the glove box of the car. They had apparently PC to search the car and whatever. We're not getting into that part of the case, but they did search the car. They found this BB gun, CO2 BB gun, and they're not allowed to be owned in Minnesota. The ruling that against this guy, now he's looking at 5 years for a BB gun in the glove box, follows previous decisions maintaining that air guns, when possessed by felons, are no different than regular firearms. The case was last heard at the state Supreme Court in 1977, where the court upheld the legislation based on a definition of a firearm which was set by the Minnesota Department of Fish and Game. So Fish and Game considers it a firearm because you could be shooting at doves
Shooting
with
it,
it or whatever.
Okay.
So because
Because
they
they want
said
the
it's
hunting
a
license,
firearm,
Or the
This
coaching
guy-
issue.
who is a prohibited person for domestic violence misdemeanor, now is a felon, in effect, a felon in possession of a firearm. The difference here, it's only a firearm because he's a felon.
Right.
Yeah.
Give it to a 10-year-old
He didn't really
kid
know
and
that
it's
he was-
illegal
Yeah.
BB gun,
Yeah, I mean, we've got,
non-firearm.
we say pharmacists can have whatever drug, cocaine,
Sure.
because they're pharmacists, they're allowed to have it. And if a private party has that without a prescription, that's a crime.
Mhm.
But here, the cocaine is always cocaine.
Right.
Here, we're changing the BB gun into a firearm.
Aspirin becomes cocaine.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
basically.
the guy possessing it.
Yeah, I think this, I mean, I understand where they're going with this, and, if they want to do this, the other thing, air guns are also considered firearms if they're used in a robbery or drive-by shooting. Okay, now that all makes sense. It just seems that there's a much more elegant way to put this in a package other than, like you say, having it's this if it's you and it's this if it's you, because I think he might have some good arguments
Yeah, I
in
mean,
the
it's got a
Supreme
crime
Court
being
that,
committed because you're pretending it's a firearm.
right,
Right.
So
then-
using it in armed
Sure,
robbery,
right.
you're telling the world this is a firearm
Right.
and I'm in possession of it when it really isn't.
Right.
But here, it's in the glove box. He's not using it as a weapon. That's just, I mean, I know the guy at one point beat his wife or whatever. Apparently they've made up or whatever. But what my concern is they've changed the definition. Cocaine is always cocaine. but
Right. A
now the
BB gun is
firearm-
not always a
And-
BB gun in Minnesota.
Would
Yeah, it's
there
a
not
firearm.
be an interesting sort of a legal wrinkle for an appeal? Because technically, even if it's a convicted felon, that firearm would have to be in immediate control, right? But if
Well,
he's the driver and she's the passenger,
Constructive possession.
constructive possession,
Constructive
I-
she's
possession.
closest
I have
to
to
that.
warn you,
Right.
one of the things Art left off his resume was a law degree from Berkeley.
Okay. No, I think,
So-
you argue constructive possession, and I think.
That seems a
it's-
little weird to me. that
It's a little
she's
weird,
a little
but
closer to the
Yeah, but,
lockbox,
you know. They get away with constructive possession on all kinds of things in cars.
Just
You
because
know?
he happened to be
Just
the lucky
because-
car owner.
He was the
You're
car
saying-
owner, he was in the car, he was,
He's in possession of
I mean,
his car.
it's no different than, if you're on probation or a felon and you can't have firearms in the house and your friend brings over a firearm,
Right.
then you're in constructive possession of that firearm and off you go to jail for 5 years.
Unless he's got a permit and he has to wear it the whole time, or he locks
Well,
it
I
away.
mean, if he's your PO, then maybe you get away with it.
Right, okay.
Or, alcohol, you can be in construction possession of that if it's in the car.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's and the Supreme Court's been pretty,
So what you're
Lax.
saying is
Well, this
He
is
probably
headed
didn't
to,
have a good enough lawyer.
He probably didn't have a good enough lawyer. That,
this,
and, you know,
this is headed
that's,
to the U.S. Supreme Court. There's no doubt.
no, it should.
Because there's a lot of goofy things in here. I mean, you could, if this goes and the Supreme Court says it's okay, if not, it might blow up Nevada's law where you have an open container of alcohol, but you're not drinking.
Right.
But that's illegal to have in the car. It's not illegal to have it at home, but it's illegal to have it when you're driving. I've always wondered about that one when you're not drinking. You know, the lid's on.
Yes.
You have no alcohol, and yet it's
Well,
still
we
a
can,
crime.
you know, and that's a new crime that came about with the whole Mothers Against Drunk Driving
Right.
stuff. And, you know, because in Montana, that law has only recently been changed, is if, as long as, you know, your passenger can drink open container as long as you're not. And then they recently changed that because of the,
So they were one of the states, as long as there
they
was
were
one
the, I
less
think they were
beer
about,
open
yeah.
than the driver,
Right.
then you're okay.
And I think it was
because
about-
it's assumed he's not drinking. But the other three guys,
The
you're
other
okay
three-
because you're not driving.
And I think they were about the last state to pass that law. I think that, you know.
And I realize we're getting into the minutia of the law here, but understand this is a real case, and this is a guy who's looking at 5 years in prison for having a BB gun in the glove box of his car.
Well,
Yeah.
he's with the girl that he wasn't supposed to be with.
Well,
Well,
because she
that's
wanted
the
to be with
PC
him.
for the stop.
Yeah.
So they put that in because that's the reason the officer pulled him over, which is a reasonable
It
reason.
must be a
for him to
small
say
town that the officer knew
that he knew.
the guy
Yeah. Well,
and this chick were not
yeah,
supposed to be together. And maybe the officer wanted to date her and was following him.
so we're
Where he just
going.
had nothing
we're going-
to do.
We're
because
going
there's no
under
crime in that small town.
a 30-year-old definition from Minnesota Fish
Fish
and
and Game.
Game
Yeah.
saying this is a firearm. In Nevada, we have a description of a firearm. It's using an explosive force and high pressure gas and expels
Right.
a projectile. So BB guns aren't
Yeah.
here. But
Well, I mean, obviously in
it seems like a
1977,
minutia case here. But
Fish
this
and
guy's
Game was
looking at
having
5
problems
years
with
of his life.
people, like Art said, poaching game
Right.
birds or game animals with
With
BB
BB
guns and needed to have an avenue to
We're just
get
going
them on the
to add
poaching.
this over into this
Right, yeah.
here.
Well, yeah, and that's the problem. If you're using it to shoot ducks with it or on the ground out of season or whatever, yeah, I can see it's already illegal to shoot ducks. He's not
Yeah.
doing
But
something.
that
Right.
shouldn't be the legal definition within the
Shouldn't be
state code.
firearm.
Yes.
This is a really bad case, and it seems silly, but when I see this guy, and I don't know, maybe he's a horrible, rotten person, but case law
Well,
makes everybody, and this guy's
yeah.
going to get 5 years in prison for having a BB gun that he's not pointing at anybody, not threatening anybody with. There's no other crime involved. Yeah.
Well, you
I
know,
see a
and
lot of
not to be a
animals.
naysayer, Bob, but if it was a Glock in his thing, you know, I mean, even though he's not pointing at somebody,
It would be. It's the change of definition.
it's
of
a change
the
of
device.
definition. Yeah,
We're gonna leave that and let everybody go home. I appreciate your tuning in to Fired Up. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, we'll have some flesh out on this Obama stuff, and we'll know what you can do if you want to sell a gun to somebody.
Right.
And in the meantime, get your permits.
Yeah, come get a concealed carry permit so you don't end up like this guy. Well, he couldn't get a permit anyway because he's a domestic batterer. But thanks for tuning in. We'll try it again next week and get things sorted out that make sense within the firearms law. That's going to be a big subject this week. Thanks for tuning in.
Night, everybody.
We will see you
Night,
next
everyone.
week.